Somewhere around 1998, a 2-year-old boy arrived in London as a refugee, brought across the world by a mother who was starting over with almost nothing. At the time, nobody could have known that this child would one day become one of the most recognisable faces in UK entertainment. He would grow up to be young Philly, the loud, charismatic creator who could walk into almost any room and instantly make people laugh. The BBC presenter who somehow made mainstream television feel like YouTube. The musician, the football personality, the brand-safe creator, and the guy who was loved by everyone from online fans to some of the biggest companies in the country. But that is exactly what makes this story so uncomfortable. Because in October 2024, that carefully built image collapsed almost overnight. And once it did, people started looking back at Philly very differently. Old clips, old stories, and old warnings suddenly began to feel a lot harder to ignore. This is the story of how young Philly became one of the UK's most beloved internet stars, and how everything people thought they knew about him began to fall apart. But before we get to that, it's important to understand why Philly's image was so powerful in the first place. His real name is Andrés Felipe Valencia Barrientos, and he was born on the 6th of August, 1995, in Cali, Colombia. When he was just 2 years old, his mother Maria brought him and his sister to the UK. His father was mostly absent, and Maria worked cleaning jobs to keep the family fed. For years, stability was never really guaranteed in Philly's life. They moved through different parts of South London: Catford, Kidbrooke, Deptford, Ladywell, New Cross, before eventually settling in Orpington, in the London borough of Bromley. After school, Philly joined Conisbrough College. Although academics were never really his strength, but even if the grades weren't there, the personality clearly was. After finishing Year 11, he briefly moved back to Colombia to try his luck at football for a team in Barranquilla, but that dream did not work out. So when he came back to London, he picked up a camera instead. In 2013, he launched his YouTube channel with short skits, comedy, and street interviews. And shortly later, his series Asking Awkward Questions became a signature format where he would walk up to strangers and celebrities with unexpected questions and somehow make everyone laugh.
So spell necessity.
NEC.
She can't do shit, bro.
His energy was infectious, and his ability to make anyone comfortable on camera was something you simply could not teach.
I really appreciate it.
But you know, if there's a girl out there that fancies me and really wants to like have my kids and be together with me,
That's
you're
me.
fuck.
That's me.
Oh.
That's me. I
Oh,
want
what,
him
they
to
all
have
want
my
me?
baby. Isabel, go away. Get out, babe.
That ability became his biggest strength. Whether he was talking to complete strangers or famous celebrities, he had a way of making every interaction feel effortless. People watched him because he was not only funny, but also seemed authentic. His work with Wall of Entertainment went viral, helping the channel grow to more than 600,000 subscribers. And when he focused on his own channel, that grew too, eventually reaching almost 1.8 million subscribers. The name Young Philly had already stuck by then, given to him by friends during his teenage years, and Philly as a play on his given name, Felipe. It fit perfectly. And as his audience grew, so did the company around him. Philly became a regular face in videos with some of the biggest names in UK YouTube, especially Beta Squad. He was never an official member, but he appeared so often and fit in so naturally that a lot of fans assumed he basically was. He appeared in some of their biggest videos, and fans loved the dynamic. One video alone, blind dating girls based on their outfits, pulled over 23 million views, and there were plenty of others doing serious numbers too. He fit so naturally into that world that a lot of people genuinely assumed he was part of the core group. But the most important relationship to come out of that world was with Chunks. The two became close creative partners and best friends, eventually launching the Chunks and Philly show, which built a strong audience of its own and pulled hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They also co-hosted the MOBO Awards together, giving Philly another step into the mainstream. By 2018, he had successfully crossed over into mainstream television, becoming a familiar face on the BBC through shows like Hot Property and Celeb Lock-In, while also making appearances on programmes like Would I Lie to You, The Great Celebrity Bake Off, and even played in Soccer Aid. And all of this worked simply because people enjoyed having him on their screens. Philly brought the same loud, likeable energy everywhere he went. And because the public trusted that image, brands started trusting it too. He worked with ASOS, putting him in front of one of the biggest online fashion audiences in the UK. Heinz brought him into campaigns. The Football Association partnered with him, and Upload Productions helped manage the commercial work behind it all. These were not small companies taking random chances on an internet comedian. These were major brands putting money behind Philly because his image felt safe, familiar, and marketable. And with every new collaboration, that image only became stronger, and he had done it by simply being himself. He came from nothing and never seemed to forget where he started with him, thanking God every now and then for changing his life. Looking back, that's what makes the rest of this story so unsettling, because this golden image was about to be shattered in the most public way possible. But before he became notorious for many reasons, there was already one person trying to tell people that version of young Philly they loved on camera was not the full story. And at the time, almost nobody listened. In 2021, a UK rapper named LV General made public accusations against young Philly. And what made it different from your typical internet beef was who it was coming from. LV wasn't trying to chase clout. In fact, he was someone who grew up with him and had once been one of his closest friends.
Philly, young Philly, obviously me and him was brethren.
Philly. Well,
from
you
the
two
start.
bridges no more.
Nah, I don't really chat to man. Well, to be honest, I don't chat to man. It's not even a really thing, I don't.
Okay.
So
He claimed fame had changed Philly completely. The warm and genuine guy that everyone loved on camera had become someone completely different behind the scenes.
It goes way back. It's deeper than content days. Like I used to chill out, and do you know what I mean?
And according to LV, it was not just a small personality shift. He said Philly had started cutting people off as he became more successful, and LV believed he was one of the people left behind.
I'm sitting there just chatting and man's just, he's not even like paying attention to what I'm saying. He's acting like he don't know, man. And I don't like them things. Like, and see how I grow.
He called Philly out for becoming materialistic, losing touch with the people he used to be around, and forgetting the version of himself that existed before all the fame.
And then all of a sudden he just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the money and the fame.
Yeah.
But in 2021, none of this really damaged Philly's reputation. To most people watching, it just looked like another friendship falling apart after one person became famous. The internet had seen that story 100 times before, so LV's accusations were easy to dismiss as bitterness from someone who had been left behind. Philly's fan base was too big and too loyal for any of it to land. The whole thing faded within days. His reputation acted like a shield. When millions of people already believe someone is genuine, it becomes incredibly difficult for one voice to convince them otherwise. So LV General was written off as someone with a personal grudge, and for a while that seemed to be the end of it. But years later, after Philly's name appeared in headlines for reasons nobody expected, people would start looking back at LV's warnings very differently. And when those headlines finally arrived, they came from the other side of the world. On October 8th, 2024, the internet woke up to the news that young Philly had been arrested in Australia. For fans, it was almost impossible to process. But how did someone so widely loved end up under arrest? For a few hours, most people only knew the headline. Philly had been arrested in Brisbane, Queensland by detectives from Western Australia Police. That detail alone raised questions, because Western Australia Police were not local to Brisbane. They had come from the opposite side of the country. And soon, it became clear that this had not started in Brisbane at all. It started almost 2 weeks earlier, on September 27th, 2024, when Philly travelled to Perth for a guest performance at Bar One nightclub in Hillary's. He was in Australia on tour at the time, and from the outside, everything looked completely normal. The shows continued. His social media looked normal. Nobody watching online had any idea that something serious was already unfolding behind the scenes. Because the next day, September 28th, a woman in her 20s went to Western Australia Police and made a report about what she alleged had happened after that nightclub performance. According to her, Philly had allegedly her after he took her to a Perth hotel room. She also alleged he physically assaulted her during the incident and that she sustained injuries. For around 10 days, none of this was public. Then, on October 8th, detectives arrested him in Brisbane, where he had travelled after the Perth shows. He was taken into custody and extradited back to Perth the following day. This is important to understand because Perth and Brisbane are not close to each other at all, and the journey between them takes up to 45 hours by road. The police would only go to that kind of extent if the accusations they were dealing with were really that serious. But the full seriousness of the case did not become clear until October 10th, 2024, when Philly appeared before Perth Magistrates Court. That was when the charges were finally laid out. He was charged with 4 counts of sexual penetration without consent, 3 counts of assault occasioning bodily harm. Seeing all of those charges read together was the moment many fans realised this was nothing like the influencer scandals they were used to seeing online. These were allegations carrying extremely serious criminal consequences. Prosecutors told the court the complainant had suffered multiple injuries. Bail was granted the same day he appeared in court on October 10th. His application had initially been deferred during the Thursday hearing, but was ultimately granted on conditional terms. He had to provide a personal undertaking of $100,000 Australian dollars alongside a surety of the same amount. He had to surrender his passport and was prohibited from leaving Western Australia. He was banned from contacting the complainant. He was also not allowed to discuss the case publicly or on social media. The news went public, and within hours, his entire professional life began to collapse as his own fans turned against him. But while many fans were shocked, there was another corner of the internet that reacted very differently. Some people were not surprised at all.
It was a shock, but then on the other hand, I was like, wow, there's always been these like rumours here and there, like maybe not public rumours, but I've heard people be like, yeah, he's not like people in the industry and stuff be like, he's not that good of a person. So.
For them, the arrest did not feel like it came from nowhere. It confirmed suspicions they claimed they had already had about Philly for years, but had never been able to prove. People started sharing their experiences and their gut feelings about him, pointing out that his charisma always felt a little too performed. And it turned out that a number of girls in the UK had been saying for a long time that Philly had a habit of pushing boundaries, and that when things did not go the way he wanted them to, he would get aggressive. And as those reactions spread, the backlash became impossible for brands to ignore. The very companies that had once proudly associated themselves with him suddenly had every reason to do the opposite. In the world of sponsorships, reputation is everything, and once that reputation disappears, so do the contracts. The Football Association pulled the freestyle cooking series within 24 hours of the arrest becoming public. It was a campaign made with M&S Food that was supposed to feature Bukayo Saka, Ezri Konsa, and Jared Bowen. It had been live for exactly 1 day before it was taken down. At the same time, Upload Productions announced it was pausing all commercial work with him. ASOS also ended its relationship with him entirely. Heinz walked away from every campaign that featured him, including the secret sauce collaboration with German Doner Kebab that had only launched a few weeks before his arrest. And several other brands did not even need to make a statement. They simply deleted the content, removed his face, and quietly moved on. Within days, the same image that had made young Philly so valuable to companies had become the exact reason they wanted nothing to do with him. And it was not just brands that started distancing themselves. After the allegations surfaced, Philly stopped appearing in Beta Squad content entirely. For years, it had almost felt impossible to imagine that world without him popping up somewhere. Even though he was never an official member, he had become such a familiar face in their videos that his absence was impossible to ignore. Then, almost overnight, he disappeared from that entire side of UK YouTube. The same thing happened with Chunks. The two had a sold-out live show coming up for the Chunks and Philly Show Live, scheduled for October 18th at the Troxy in London. But after the arrest, ticket holders were issued refunds, and the podcast stopped entirely. Chunks faced backlash for his silence, as he was the co-host of Show with Philly. Timing couldn't have been worse. Everything they had spent years building together came to a halt before the live show even had a chance to happen. Eventually, Chunks posted a short statement on Instagram acknowledging the reports, but said he could not comment because of the ongoing legal proceedings.
Now, which I won't comment on, I can't comment on because of the fact it is ongoing. So I hope you guys understand that and are here to support the show.
He did not defend him, and he did not condemn him. For a lot of people, that silence said enough on its own. By this point, Philly's TV work had stopped. The BBC connection had gone quiet, the brand deals were drying up, and the public image he had spent over a decade building was being replaced by a completely different set of words like arrest, charges, and essay. It's difficult to overstate how dramatic that shift was. Search his name before October 2024 and you found comedy, football, music and television. Search it afterwards, and almost every headline was about the criminal case. And once the arrest became public, the internet did what it always does. It went back through everything. Within hours of the charges being reported, clips started circulating across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. People were re-watching years of Philly's content, and a lot of moments that once looked like harmless banter suddenly felt very different. One older video from 2018 resurfaced, showing him getting uncomfortably close to two young women and acting in a way many viewers now found inappropriate.
What's he saying? I know this bit, wait for this bit. I love you, I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. There's nothing above you. Nothing above you, above you.
One of the most widely shared clips came from a live stream with I Show Speed. In this stream, young Philly gets a little too cozy with a girl. Speed questions him about it right there on stream, and Philly just laughs it off.
It is light at, bro. All right, you know what? Let's start off calm. Monkey see, monkey do. Why you keep doing that? Why?
At the time, many viewers barely reacted. After the Perth allegations, they watched the same footage again and saw it completely differently. Then people turned back to one of the biggest Sidemen videos Philly had appeared in, a 20 versus 1 format with over 40 million views. After the arrest, the sidemen made the video private, but by then viewers had already clipped the moments they found uncomfortable, and those clips started spreading on their own. Someone even re-uploaded the video. It showed how he interacted with the female participants throughout the video, and a lot of viewers said his physical behaviour made them uncomfortable. Watching it back,
Was it the feet? No, it's your feet.
he was standing too close and touching without being invited. He was constantly pushing boundaries in ways that everyone had just read as confidence and banter at the time.
Can you at least stand up, please?
Can I stand up?
Yeah, just stand there. We're going to play a game then.
Oh, crying out loud.
So it's either side.
The riz and the constant jokes around women had always been part of his personality on camera. Nobody had ever seriously questioned it because he was likeable enough that nobody felt the need to. But the more people re-watched Philly's old content, the more uncomfortable the conversation became, because it was not just the physical jokes or the awkward flirting that started getting pulled apart. People also began resurfacing moments that involved younger girls. One clip that quickly spread showed Philly saying he had no issue with a 25-year-old dating a 16-year-old.
No, so a 25-year-old can't be with a 16-year-old.
Yes, they can.
Yes. What? Why not?
25-year-old with a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
I can't be.
I
this.
know,
As soon
bro.
as you're
I
16,
agree, G. I agree. Morally, it's wrong, but the law
As
is
soon
they
as you're
can.
16, you're legal.
You're allowed to
I
club.
thought 16 could be with other 16-year-olds.
No.
On its own, that clip was already enough to make people uncomfortable. But after his arrest, another video started going viral, and this time it was from a 21-year-old girl who came forward after Philly's arrest to share her own experience with him years earlier. She was 21 when she posted the video, but according to her, she was only 17 years old in 2021 when Philly first approached her. She claimed Philly messaged her on Instagram, despite knowing she was under 18. According to her, she even ended up going to his flat and claimed Philly was the one who booked the cab for her. She also shared a clip that appeared to show her inside Philly's apartment, with Philly's voice heard in the background. She then claimed that Philly and his management manipulated her into staying quiet and made her feel like speaking out would ruin her life.
I spoke to young Philly on Instagram DM. He DM'd me and I ended up going to his flat. Him and his management, they worked very hard to manipulate me.
So she stayed silent.
Me when I was 17 and to make me feel like if I said anything then they could ruin my life would be over, you know, it'd be awful for me, awful for my mental health. So they convinced me to stay quiet.
But after the Perth arrest, she came forward and said she felt awful because she wondered whether speaking up earlier could have prevented what allegedly happened to the woman in Australia.
And right now I just feel awful because I feel like in light of what's happened to this poor woman in Australia, maybe it could have been prevented if I'd said something before.
To be clear, this did not prove what happened in Perth, but it did add to the reason people were now looking at Philly's public image very differently. And then, another story resurfaced that showed a different side of the same problem, people feeling let down by the person they had trusted. Philly had once sent a video message to a 12-year-old, terminally ill boy named Mason Greaves, wishing him a speedy recovery.
Mason! I know, innit? This is probably a little surprise for you, but I just wanted to say I hope you're well. Also, thank you for watching my videos. I wish you a speedy recovery, my guy.
It was a dream come true for Mason. And then at the end of the video, Philly challenged the 12-year-old to play Fortnite with him.
And when you're up for it, let me know, and I'll whoop your ass at Fortnite.
A few months later, Mason's mother came forward to tell that Philly had completely ghosted Mason after setting Mason's expectations so high. He also told the kid to shut up and broke his heart. As more people started coming forward with their own experiences, public perception around Philly continued to deteriorate. And if the arrest was when everything fell apart, what came after made clear this was not going to be a short story. A lot of people assumed the legal case would simply play out in court, while everything else stayed relatively quiet. Instead, every few months, another headline pushed him even further into controversy. On November 17, 2024, less than 2 months after his arrest, young Philly was caught on Roe Highway near the Perth suburb of High Wycombe. He was doing 158 kilometres per hour in a zone where the limit is 100. In Western Australia, driving 45 kilometres over the speed limit is automatically a reckless driving charge. And Philly was not just any driver speeding on an empty road, he was on bail at the time, facing multiple serious charges in the Australian case. His car was seized on the spot, and on December 5th, he pleaded guilty to the reckless driving charge at Perth Magistrates Court, and on December 19th, the matter was formally dealt with. He was fined and given a 6-month driving ban. The maximum penalty for that offence under Western Australian law is up to 9 months in prison and a fine of up to 6,000 Australian dollars, so relatively speaking, he got off lightly. But people online were genuinely baffled because that was not the first time his driving licence was banned. He got this penalty in the UK too, but was still allowed to drive abroad. He was under more scrutiny than almost any British internet personality had ever been, and he still got behind the wheel and drove at close to 100 miles per hour. Then on March 11th, 2025, he left court after pleading not guilty to all charges in the Australian SA case. A reporter asked how he was feeling. His response was 3 words: "It's a lovely day." He walked off before anything else could be said. For a lot of people, that moment was enough to understand that he simply did not care for everything that was happening. Whether that was actually his intention or not, his attitude still matters. And even if you give his careless attitude the benefit of doubt, things only took a turn for the worse. If anyone thought the Australian allegations would be the only legal battle Philly had to deal with, they were about to be proven wrong. Just when it looked like the story couldn't become any more complicated, another investigation emerged, and this time from an entirely different country, Spain. It happened 2 weeks after the driving incident. On March 24th, 2025, Spanish media reported that a court in Palma, Mallorca, had opened a formal criminal investigation into young Philly over an alleged SA involving a British tourist. The alleged incident dated back to the summer of 2024. Months before his Australia tour. Philly had travelled to Magaluf during the summer party season, where he had reportedly been booked to perform at a beach club event. According to reports, Philly had met the British woman at the same beach club event. They later crossed paths again at a nearby nightclub before the woman allegedly ended up in a hotel room, where she claimed Philly entered and sexually assaulted her. After returning to the UK, the woman reported what happened to British police. British authorities then contacted Spain's Guardia Civil, who investigated and passed their findings to a court in Palma. That court then opened a formal criminal investigation. Under Spanish law, that process happens largely behind closed doors, and only trials are made public. So unless the case goes all the way to trial, very little about what is happening there may come out publicly. But even with limited information, the report immediately added another layer to the controversy surrounding him. The investigating judge in Palma then formally contacted Australian authorities, requesting that young Philly be questioned under oath as part of the Spanish probe. At that point, he was sitting in Perth, unable to leave Western Australia under his bail conditions. 2 separate legal systems in 2 different countries were now both looking at the same person at the same time. Both involved meeting a woman at the venue afterward and ending in a hotel room. Both resulted in allegations of SA. The 2 cases are legally independent and completely separate, but the pattern they formed together was hard to ignore. By March 2025, he was facing 8 charges in Australia, a separate criminal investigation in Spain, and a guilty plea for reckless driving while on bail. This was no longer just a controversy threatening his career. By this time, his entire public identity had been overtaken by the legal cases, leaving almost nothing the entertainer people had spent years following. He had built everything from nothing, and he was watching it collapse across 2 continents at the same time. Nearly a year passed with no posts and no statements. His accounts were completely dark and the podcast was frozen. Then at the end of September 2025, he reappeared on Snapchat. People weren't expecting his first post back to be an apology or a statement, because his bail conditions prevented him from discussing the case publicly. But they also weren't expecting what came next. He posted 2 stories. One was a mirror selfie asking his followers if his curly hair suited him. The other was a shot of his gaming setup with a caption saying he was the best at the Warzone. He posted a photo hugging his mother and sister on return to the UK, which sparked its own backlash. People questioned why he would photograph and share what should have been a private emotional reunion. But the part that caught people off guard was that he was casually posting photos of his feet. It just kept getting weirder with him posting photos of baby feet too. And then he again posted a 25-second video showing his feet and zooming them while walking. But the Snapchat content was more than just the hair selfie and feet pictures. He was also posting clips of himself eating and dancing, yelling that he was back on pork after years off it, going to church and talking about the pastor. People online noted that the pork comment seemed directed at Chunks, Darkest Man, and Harry Pinero, who are all Muslim and used to be close friends with him publicly, but now had all gone quiet on him. The rumours were that he was publicly signalling he had moved on and from them, but that was a lie. He seemed visibly angry but was faking it with his chill personality. The way he was posting irrelevant and yelling content, people thought he was going mad. His social media had effectively become entertainment for a completely different reason. Instead of watching to see what funny thing young Philly would do next, people were watching because they genuinely couldn't predict what he would post. There was also a TikToker who tried to defend Philly by publicly telling how their own experience was consensual.
I actually know Philly, so at least the people that are watching this can have something based on someone that actually knows him and not... There was actually, I'm going to make a point of saying this, there was a point where he was like, if you don't want to do if you don't want to do anything, if you don't want to, bear in mind we'd spoken last year, we'd been seeing each other last year, and even then he was like, if you don't want to do anything, if you're not comfortable, we don't have to.
People definitely didn't like it because there was a girl out there who had been assaulted by this same man. So even if 10 other women had a consensual and respectful encounter with him, it still doesn't mean that this one case should be overlooked. People also speculated he was posting on Snapchat specifically for money, since Snapchat pays creators who post regularly, and he has 1.4 million followers there. Meanwhile, his YouTube and Instagram have been completely dormant since October 5th, 2024, 3 days before his arrest. A lot of people were not happy with the Snapchat post because, to them, it looked like he was trying to act as if nothing had happened. Some kept asking why he had not addressed anything directly. But the truth was slightly more complicated. His bail conditions specifically prohibited him from publicly discussing the case on social media. And in September 2025, a judge amended his bail terms to allow him to return to the UK temporarily before trial, as long as he surrendered his passport and returned to Australia by January 7th, 2026. But nothing in his bail conditions required him to post selfies asking about his hair. That was a decision he made, and for a lot of people watching it, was the wrong one. And while his online behaviour was already being criticised, the case itself became even more serious. On June 13th, 2025, Philly appeared before Perth District Court for a pre-trial hearing. Prosecutors added 2 more counts of sexual penetration without consent, both relating to the same alleged incident on September 28th, 2024. His total was now 10 charges, 6 counts of sexual penetration without consent, 3 counts of assault occasioning bodily harm, and 1 count of strangulation. No plea was entered for the 2 new charges that day. His original not guilty plea to the 8 charges from March stayed in place. He left court wearing headphones and said nothing, but the fact that prosecutors had added 2 more charges showed that the case was not shrinking. It was still expanding.